Okay, we still have a few folks joining, and that should be just fine. But we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you all for being with us. Again, if you're just coming online, please do enter your name and affiliation in the chat window, just so we know, the scope and breadth of our audience. So my name is Pendyala. I'm a professor at Arizona State University. I also serve as the Associate Director for the National University Transportation Center on Understanding the Future of Travel Behavior and Demand. So in short, it's called the TBD Center. I also serve as the Director of the School of Sustainable Engineering and the Built Environment here at Arizona State University. This webinar is brought to you by the TBD Center, which is led by the one and only Professor Chandra Bhatt at the University of Texas at Austin. And so we're very delighted to bring this webinar to you about a very cool dashboard that we have developed. And so over the past many years, we've seen travel and mobility trends, kind of changing with all of the new emerging mobility services, with the pandemic and so on, telework patterns. And so we felt that people really need to have data at the tip of their, at their fingertips, so to speak, in order to monitor mobility trends. And so I think some time ago, we presented our first dashboard, which was T3D. That's the Time Use, Travel, and Telework dashboard. And then with more data being available and wanting to do a deeper dive into mobility trends, we've now developed the Mobility Dashboard, TMD. And so today's presentation and webinar is going to focus on the new dashboard, TMD. And so we have the mastermind behind these dashboards, Dr. Irfan Batur, in order to present the dashboard and do a full-fledged demo of the platform so you can see its capabilities and features. His presentation and demo will be followed by a commentary by none other than Steve Polzin. Steve Polzin is a research professor at Arizona State University, well known to everybody. He has spent his career looking at mobility trends and what it means for transportation planning and policy. So Steve will provide a commentary and also moderate the Q&A at the end following Irfan's presentation. So you're welcome to put your questions into the chat as we go along, and Steve will get around to your questions at the end. Or you can, of course, raise your hand, the virtual hand in Zoom, and Steve will call on you in order during the Q&A session. Irfan came to us at ASU about 5 years ago. He finished his PhD at Arizona State University and is now an assistant research professor at ASU. He also serves as the assistant director for the TBD Center, and prior to that, he served as the assistant director for the TomNet University Transportation Center. So he's kind of a master of so many different skills and trades. And so with that, Irfan, please go ahead with your presentation and demo. I will fade into the background, and then we'll follow with Steve's commentary and Q&A. So thank you all.
Okay, so thank you so much for the introduction, Dr. Pendyala. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm very excited to introduce you our latest and hopefully the greatest dashboard, TMD, the dashboard. And again, this is the continuation of our work after creating and developing 2 other dashboards, and we will continue developing more. So I'll just go ahead and start with some introductory slides to contextualize why we are doing it and a little bit of how we are doing it. And then I'll basically open the dashboard and try to do a quick demo with all the capabilities and features. So as we all know, we are now in an era of disruptions that, we started seeing new and significant disruptions and many transformative forces that are at play, shaping travel behaviors and demand. So, in the planning era, we used to do a decennial snapshots, near decennial snapshots through mainstream travel surveys like NHTS. Assuming that travel patterns and trends were not that dynamic and mostly stable, maybe over a decade. So we were just getting a snapshot. But right now, with all those disruptions, as you all are aware, so the mobility trends now shift year to year or even faster. So basically, we need, as planners, researchers, and policymakers, we need to change. We need to track those changes as it happens, not at basically a decade later. I think I missed one slide. Okay. So if you look into the transportation landscape, what sort of data is available? What we see is there are three types of data sets that are available for our use. So one of them is mainstream transportation planning data sets that include National Household Travel Survey, American Community Survey, and Vehicle Inventory and Use Survey. So these are regularly used in modeling and forecasting. And then there are supplementary data sources that are available, such as American Time Use Survey, Consumer Expenditure Survey, and Commodity Flow Survey. So these are useful to understand travel behaviors and contextualize them. And then there are topical and other specialized data sets. Those are routinely collected by university transportation centers, state agencies, and other industry partners and organizations. So this could include behavioral adaptation surveys, private sector mobility data, and local and regional surveys conducted for specific objectives. So why this is an issue? It's just all of these data sets basically are quite fragmented and exist independently. So it is quite difficult to know, which data set provides the right insights for a given research question that you might have. So even many experts of us, right, we are not aware of and we are not expert of all the data sets that are available. And because we are not aware, it's also difficult comparing results across these different data sets, because you need to, even if you are aware of all of those data sets and if you develop some expertise of analyzing those data sets, still you need to go through each of these data sets, analyze them individually, and then try to see where they have common ground to make comparisons. So bottom line, the problem is not data access. We have plenty of data, but the problem is about data usability. So basically, one thing is that, we as researchers and also the policymakers, we need a single entry point to find relevant dashboards for the specific analytical needs where we can access all of this data seamlessly. So this brings us to one of the flagship efforts and endeavors that we are doing under the umbrella of the TBD National Center. So it is called Travel Behavior Data Hub, or in short, the TBD Hub. So this TBD Hub is basically, we envision that this is going to be a one-stop shop to get travel behavior insights. And so planners, policymakers, even the public, so the general public, so they can come to that hub and see all the available dashboards designed for different data sets and get insights about what's happening in the field of transportation. So again, in this hub, we will integrate key publicly available data sets like American Community Survey, American Time Use Survey, WIAS, so on and so forth, and as well as our in-house survey efforts that we collect. And in this hub, we will also provide a curated list of external dashboards that have been developed by other entities, not through us, but we will also list them so that we provide a comprehensive list of what is available in terms of data. And then, so we believe this is going to reduce time spent searching for data sources and as well as analyzing for them. And in this dashboard, in this hub, it will also going to feature a set of well-being, energy footprint, and mobility poverty calculators. So under this big umbrella of the TBD hub, our latest dashboard that we built is the mobility dashboard. So that is based on the American Time Use Survey data series and all the travel episodes that are available there. So I just want to give a quick introduction to American Time Use Survey, just in case you are not familiar with it. So ATUS is basically a nationally representative estimates of how people spend their time over a day. So it is sponsored by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it's been conducted annually by US Census Bureau since 2003. So we have over 20 years of data, and we have about 10,000 respondents from, and those respondents are randomly selected, and they are 15 years or older. So they are interviewed for their time use diary information for the previous day. So what I mean by previous day, it's from 4 a.m. to 4 a.m. So individuals report their time, location, and purpose of activities that they pursued over the day and who they were with during each of those activities. And in ATUS, also all the demographic information is available because these respondents are being basically pulled from the CPS data. So again, so this is just like an illustration of how things look like. Again, it captures all of this 24 hours of data, right, from the individuals. And it captures all the activities that is as short as 5 minutes. So anything less than 5 minutes is not captured. But if you undertake any activity that is basically longer than 5 minutes, you report that activity based on this survey. Again, we have about 10,000 respondents for each year. This is except for the initial year, 2003, where ATUS has over 20,000 respondents nationwide. So if you look into the activity classification and definition, so the ATUS is quite rich in terms of activity purposes and types. So there are 3 tiers of information available for each activity. So there is the tier 1. Just in tier 1, we have about 18 main activity types. And if you go tier 2, tier 3, so you get more details about each of activities. So basically, if you use tier 3 information, I think you reach over 400 different activity types that are available at ATUS. And in the main activity types, there is among the 18, so the travel activities are also available. So these are the travel episodes, so that we can basically isolate those episodes and analyze them separately for transportation research and planning purposes. This is basically what we are doing in TMD. So, but still you have a very rich and large data, and it is not always feasible to basically show everything that is available in ATUS data sets, all the information. So that's why we need to be careful about what to show in a dashboard. So our goals starting developing this dashboard is basically the first, we wanted to identify what topics of interest to the community. And from each of these topical areas, so what metrics we want to visualize. And what that requires is this, what that requires in terms of analysis types. And we also wanted to design a simplistic and user-friendly platform so that the learning curve is not too steep in the beginning, so that it's going to be very easy to use and very useful and very easy to get insights. So we also wanted to be quite fast. So that's why we pre-processed some of the data, and then we optimize all the data visualization operations and elements on the backend. And then we also wanted to keep this open source and make it easy to maintain. And so that with every new release of ATUS datasets, we will basically spend a minimal effort to update the dashboard for a new dataset. And we also seek continuous feedback for in terms of how we can improve our dashboards. So the 4 topical areas that we included in the mobility dashboard in the TMD is trip purpose, travel mode, zero trip making, and day pattern. So we will go through all of this in detail when I am doing the demo for the dashboard, but basically in the trip purpose and travel mode, these are both, we are focusing on person level and trip level information for all of these aspects. And then there's the zero trip making. So this is to analyze the patterns of those who basically undertake no trip on any given day. So they are the homebodies. And then we also focus on day patterns because we have the 24-hour information about the travel episodes and their purposes, the activities that follow them and that activities that precede them. So we can create a day pattern and see how that evolves over the years and for certain segments. So in TMD, we are providing 3 different analysis types. So the within analysis, between analysis, and cross-segment analysis. So for within analysis, you are going to basically see all the available metrics for a certain topical area on any given year. And for the between analysis, if you want to pick a few different metrics, let's say a couple of trip purposes, right? And you want to see how those evolves over between years. So you change your analysis type to between year, and you can do this kind of comparisons over the years. And for cross-segment analysis, then here you pick only one single metric that is available in TMD and see how that evolves for different market segments. So you can basically create your own market segment, multiple market segments, and say how they basically evolved in terms of trip making over the years. So in the end, we have 3 different analysis types, and this is not available for each topical area. So I will explain that later as well. So with that, here are some use cases that I pulled together. So how you can use our dashboards and specifically TMD for your own purposes. So one of them is you can check the consistency of statistics in other data sources. For example, you collected your own in-house data survey, and then, or you want to basically see how the latest NHTS compare ATUS in terms of, let's say, trip making rates. So you can easily basically come to our dashboard and pull those statistics and make comparisons between those surveys. And the second thing, you can test research questions and hypotheses that you might have. This will be especially helpful in policy formulations, research idea conceptualization, or basically in model estimations. So if you think that there is a correlation or might be a potential causation between 2 different variables, or between 2 different variables or a variable in a market segment, you can easily and very quickly come to dashboard, and in just a matter of seconds, you can see if you have the initial basically evidence that is available at ATUS. And we also design the TMD in a way that you can basically create statistics for your reports, for your proposals, and for your presentations, like very quickly. For example, if you are curious about how trip making rates change for any worker groups, if you are making a presentation for that group, then you can come here, come to TMD and download the data that feeds the chart, and you can even create your own charts, and you can provide those in your presentation. Or if you are putting together, let's say, a proposal, right, for your, let's say, region, you can come here and you can get the regional travel trends from TMD, and you can provide those trends and comparisons in your proposals as well. So with that, let's get started with the demo. Okay, so I'll just go to Google to show you how you can access the dashboard in case you lose the URL. So just search for TBD Center. Okay, this is at UT Austin. Okay, you go to TBD Center. And you go to Software and Tools. Under the Research, you go Software and Tools. And here you can find the details about the TBD Hub, and as well as the 3 dashboards that we have built so far under the umbrella of TBD Hub. Okay, and here is the TMD, here is the T3D, and here is our first dashboard developing platform. So you can click TMD here, okay, and it will take you to the homepage of TMD. So here on the homepage, once you landed on the homepage, we designed it such that so everything about this basically dashboard is hosted at GitHub, so it is publicly available. So once you land on this homepage, what happens is on the back end, right, the data sets that feed the dashboard is automatically started being downloaded and stored in your cache, in your browser cache. So that's already started. You don't even notice it. Okay, again, we have 4 different topical areas here. Okay, and here are, if you click any of those, by the way, it's going to take you to the dashboard for that specific page. And there are key features available here that you can read. So there's multi-level analysis, again, comprehensive comparison tools and customizable insights. And you have this How It Works Part 2. You can click here and you can go to dashboard, and here is our sponsors. So USDOT and UT Austin. And then again, this is TBD Center, and then our preceding UTC, the Tomlet Transportation Center, and Arizona State University. So this is the visitor statistics that we try to keep track of to see the interest and usage of the dashboard. So this is only for, I think, in the last month after we started publicizing the dashboard. So if you, and here we also have a quick demo that's AI generated video that is available on our TBD YouTube page that you can quickly watch for 6 minutes and get a sense of some features and capabilities of TMD. And here is the About page. Again, so this is this explains the details about TMD, what key concepts that we are considering here. So one of them is, for example, zero trip making. So how do we define zero trip making? What does it mean? And how do we capture zero trip makers at ATUS? And then there are day patterns and trip chains. Okay, so what do we mean by day patterns and trip chains, and how do we basically, how did we compute them and analyze them using ATUS data? And then here are some segment attributes and customization. So one of them is that you may want to know is, so in addition to providing the employment status of respondents in terms of like worker, non-worker, we also provide a segmentation based on work arrangement of individuals. So you can basically now become a non-worker, or if you are a worker and if you report zero work activity on the day, on the survey day, then we classify you as workers with zero work. And then there are in-home only workers. So these are the workers. They basically report that they worked entirely from the home during that day. And then there are commuters only. So these are the people, they worked in the office and they never worked in home. And then there are multi-site workers, or you can call them partial day teleworkers. So these are the people, they basically reported working both at a workplace and as well as in their homes. And there is the concept of time poverty. So this is, again, a very nuanced way to understand people's time use patterns. So this basically classifies people into, just like an income poverty, we have the time poverty and time poor people. So this, which means is basically these are the people, they have relatively limited amount of time to do leisure activities, right? So these people may be working overtime, maybe do a lot of household chores. So they have limited time to do the things that may be desirable by many. So again, we provide some references if you want to read more about time poverty and how do we compute time poverty at TMD as well. So again, the data source for that feeds TMD is ATUS, and we provide those details here. And then if you need more information, we have a link that you can go to ATUS. And then we also have a data dictionary that you can download and see all the variable names and their coding that are available in the data sets that we pre-processed for TMD and that are available on the GitHub, which I will show later in a bit. So here is the team behind the TMD. So I served as the PI, and Dr. Bhatt served as co-PI for this project. And then we have two wonderful graduate students who helped us to basically develop this dashboard. So Roshan Varghese and Mohammed Zaid. So Roshan served as the lead developer, so who basically helped develop all of this in the GitHub repo. And we basically, by the way, we use a React library, and we use JavaScript to pre-process all the data that is feeding TMD on the go. So Roshan is basically the main developer and lead developer. And then we have Dr. Pendyala, who served as Chief Science Officer for TMD, CSO. And then Dr. Mokhtarian, Dr. Polzin, and Dr. Cynthia Chen, they all basically helped us with their ideas and thoughts in developing this dashboard. And so they served as senior advisor capacity. So we also have some works preceding to those dashboard ideas that where we use American Time Use Survey, and where we basically experienced by ourselves why this is quite troublesome to basically start over for any research question, start over doing all of this detailed and involved data analysis and undertake that effort. So it's very effort intensive. So anyway, so these are the studies that basically lead to the development of the dashboard. So with that, you can click dashboard here, and we will get started with the first topical area. So it lands on the trip purpose area. So before getting into the specific metrics on trip purpose, so I want to introduce two different panels here. So one of them is our left panel. So that is where you can configure your analysis structure. Okay. So what is the analysis level that you are interested in? So you want to do a person level analysis, so the day level analysis for trip purpose topical area, or you want to do a trip level analysis, so where you can analyze individual trips. Okay. And then we have the analysis type. So do you want to do a between analysis, and see how things evolve over the years for different metrics? Or do you want to do a cross-segment analysis where you can pick only one metric and compare them for different multiple market segments? And then you can also set the analysis period to any years within this horizon, right? So you can differentiate the study start year and end year, right? So you can only focus on this 10-year period between 2008 and 2019. So if you're only interested in that part. Okay, so I'll just reset this to here. And then you can also focus your analysis to weekdays, weekend days, or to all days of the week. Okay, by just clicking this. Okay, I'll just keep it for all for now. And then you also have the option to exclude or include the December observations from the data sets. If you are really worried about, the effect of holiday seasons in December's. So you can also click this or unclick that to include and exclude December records from the data set. So let's get started. So let's start with this configuration. So we have person, between year, start year, the analysis period, analysis day, and December. And in the top panel, we have the segmentation, right? So right now it is basically showing the trends and metrics for all respondents in the data set based on this configuration. But if you want to basically specify your analysis to a certain group, you can do so by using this panel, this top panel. So where we provide, I believe, near 50 different attributes. And you can choose and combine up to 3 of them and create any market segments that you are interested in. Okay, for example, you have this trips, average number of trips per person, right? So this is the trip rates. If you want to see this for, let's say, young males, okay, you can choose that and it automatically updates, right? If you want to, let's say, see how Asian youngsters do in terms of trip making, you can also do that by just, choosing any segments that you have. So here, I'll just reset. So what we provide, so we have gender, we have age, we have education. Okay, we have race categories, we have employment categories, we have household income, household size, and census division of the respondent. So this is the 9 divisions of the US. And then we have the location information. So that is basically where the household is located. Is it an urban area or not an urban area? And then we have the work arrangement, as I explained. And then we have the time poverty status. And we have main mode of transportation here. Basically, it is auto or non-auto. And how we define main mode of transportation is basically we get all the trips of the individuals on the survey day. And if at least 50% of the trips are made by private vehicles, then we classify the main mode of transportation for that individual as auto. Otherwise, we classify it as non-auto. And then we also have here the trip making status. So if you're a 0 trip maker or a trip maker, so you can basically limit analysis for any of those groups using this. So let's continue. So here we have the trip purposes. Okay, so on this page, right? So this is the trip purpose page and person level analysis. We have 2 charts here. So one of them shows average number of trips per person on the day, right? And then this is average travel duration per person on the day. Okay, and then we also provide the sample sizes. So this is at the individual level. On the day level. So how many, if you customize basically your analysis, you can see this immediately updates so that you have a sense of the sample quality that feeds those statistics. And then, so in the first chart, by the way, just to start again, we have these I buttons here, okay, to provide basically a brief description of what each of these filters do, what each of these charts visualize. Okay, so you can just come here and see what this chart visualize. So this shows the average number of trips per person per day over the analysis period. So use the drop-down menu above to compare different trip purposes. So basically you can come here. So this is the trip purposes. Let's say you want to compare work trips to overall trips, or you want to compare also the shopping trips, right? So this is the shopping. And then let's say you also want to compare adult or childcare trips, okay? And because of the scaling issue, right? So you don't see the trends much. So if you want to remove the all category, you can just click it here and it will remove the all category. So you can have a much more better scaling of the chart automatically, where you can compare how those trends look like. So if you basically come here, you can, it also shows you, right? If you hover them, it also shows you the rates for each of these years. And similarly here, so this is, again, this is the minutes, right? So how many minutes people spend on average for each of these trip purposes already, and over the analysis period between 2003 and 2023, right? So the other thing that you can do, right? So if you just click here, it will reset everything and it will goes back to all, and you cannot remove all by clicking it, it's default. So you need to at least choose one to remove it. Okay. So I will just pick and choose, let's say, work and education trips over the years. Okay. So this is how that looks like. Let's say we have this data and I don't want to use, and I want to include this on my presentation or on my report. And I don't want to include this chart. So I want to create my own chart, right? So if you want to do that, that's also very easy to do. You can just click this download button and it will download the data that feeds this chart, right? This line chart as a CSV file. So, okay, so it is here is the CSV file. So you have basically the year's information here. You have the trip rates for work purposes and trip rates for education purposes. And you can basically use this data to create your own charts and tables if you are interested in that part. So this is available also for this chart too, for all the visual elements that we provide. We also provide this data download option in case you are interested in doing so. So this is, again, what we have for trip purposes. And now I will go to trip level. So again, just to explain maybe one more time, that all of this, if you configure your analysis, everything will automatically update. Okay, so let's go to trip level. So now we move to trip level analysis and trip level data. Okay, so here what we provide is 3 different charts. So one of them shows the travel time distribution. The other shows the temporal distribution of the trips. And then this shows the travel mode distribution by trip purpose. Okay, so I'll just explain all of this. So the travel time distribution is basically, we provide them in brackets. So we analyze all of this data before, and we created this brackets. Okay, and in each of these brackets, this all adds up to 100%. Okay, so what percent of all the trips made by a given segment based on this configuration. falls into 1 to 5 minutes, 6 to 10 minutes, 11 to 15 minutes, so on and so forth. Okay, we also provide the average, right? So what is the average duration of those trips, right? So it is available in the parentheses. And if you are interested in, so how many trips are we talking about? So here is the segment size. So that refers how many people, this is basically the trips that is corresponding to this segment, right? 6,000 persons for 2023. And then if you are interested in, so how many trips are we talking about, right? So the sample size of the trips. So it is available in the next one, right? So this is a small n. So we have about 23,000 trips made by 6,000 persons in 2023. Okay, so for trip purpose, right, again, so let's compare work and maybe this time social trips. Okay, I can also add the shopping trips just in case. So now you have basically 4 different groups, right? And 4 different distributions and how they compare to each other. So again, all the same colors add up to 100%. Okay, and we have the averages, right? So on average, a work trip is 22.7 minutes. A social trip, 25 minutes, and a shopping trip is about 16 minutes. And this is their distributions. And if you go down, now we have the temporal distribution. Okay, here we see what percent of those trips were made in each hour of the day, right? So this is the starting hour of the trip, right? For each trip, so what is the starting hour? So that shows the distribution. Maybe this is a bit cluttered, so I will just keep it to 2 purposes for now. Okay, so we have the temporal distribution for work trips, and we have the temporal distribution for social trips. And this is again the sample size for those trips. And we also provide an option that you can make this an area line chart. So what I mean by that, you can increase the shades and you can see the dominating trips over any hour of the day. Okay? So you can play with the shades as well. Again, if you want to download this, you can download that, right? The data that fits this, right? So you can have it, so everything is configured for each of these visual elements, right? So these are the hours, and these are the percentages of those trips that have started in each hour of the day for work and social trips. Okay, so the next one is the travel mode distribution by trip purpose, right? So this is basically a bivariate chart that shows, so let me just reset everything, okay? So for all trips, right? So this shows what percent of the trips made by SOE, HOV, transit, walk, bike, other, and unknown modes. Okay, so all of this basically the same color, it's up to 100%. And let's say I want to compare how people utilize different modes for different work purposes. So sorry, different trip purposes. So let's compare social and work trips. Okay. As you can see here, right? So again, the same colors, it's up to 100%. So people use single occupancy vehicles, right? Way more for work trips than social trips. And for social trips, it's vice versa. And this shows, they use transit more for work trips. They walk less for work trips, so on and so forth. So you can do this comparison here. So you can also question, right? So where is the trip purpose distribution? Okay, so in other words, what percent of the trips were made to work, and what percent were made for, let's say, shopping? So we have this information is available in the travel mode page, and the travel mode information is available in the trip purpose page for all trips, right? Just because we wanted to provide this bivariate relationship tape chart, and we didn't want to duplicate this, okay, to basically keep it at a simple level. Okay, so this is, I think, the only thing that might seem a little bit, counterintuitive, but I'll repeat again on the travel page, on the travel mode page, that if you are interested in basically the travel mode distribution of the trips, you need to check this one, okay, the trip purpose graphic here. And similarly, on the travel mode page, we will have the other way around. I will show that to you. Again, here, so this is only available, right? So the trip level analysis is only available for a certain year. So this is the between year analysis, in other words, okay? So you can choose any year, okay? And you can make your, you can observe the changes. Again, you can do customization for, let's say, if you're interested in only worker trips, right? Let's only do the worker trips. By the way, you can combine a couple of them, right? So here, to create the workers category, I just combine full-time workers and part-time workers to get the worker segment, right? So here, for example, you can see the travel mode distribution for those people. And let's say we want to do weekday only, okay? So you can see the weekday distribution. And then this is a typical weekday, okay, of the workers, the temporal distribution. And let's say I only want to do work trips, okay? I want to compare work trips versus all. You can see the pick here, right? So this is the pick. Okay, so our trip purposes, okay, so these are only for the destination purpose, right? So the return to home trips is a separate category. That's why you don't see the evening pick, okay? So this is the trip purpose. Again, it doesn't involve the return to home trips from a certain destination, okay? This is something you may want to be careful about as well. So we have this. Again, if you want to download the data like a chart by itself, so we didn't include a download option for that one. Again, we didn't want to clutter this, but simply I think you can just use browsers, take screenshots, a feature, and you can get the screenshot of the chart that you are visualizing. For example, if you want to get this chart, right? So you can just get screenshot and get this part, and you can just download this and use it. So that's why we didn't want to include that. Okay, so and if you want to compare multiple years, I think you need to download the data and you can do these comparisons by yourself. Because again, we wanted to keep this in a level that is easy to understand and easy to use. For more complicated tasks, we provide the data, even the data sets. So we taught, for those complicated tasks, you can just take those data and analyze individually for each purposes, rather than complicating data sets too much in a way that, it becomes not so useful. Okay, so the next is we have the travel mode page. So trip purpose and travel mode page, in terms of data structure, the visual elements, it's identical, right? So instead of trip purpose here at the person level, we show the travel modes, right? So it's here in the trip purpose, right? So we had the trip purposes here. Now we have the travel mode, right? So that is available here. So for travel modes, we have, again, 6 different modes, or 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 7. Okay, so we have the bike, HOV, other, SOV, okay, transit, unknown, walk. By the way, if you don't want to choose from here, you can also type and it will show it to you. Okay, you don't need to go through all of this. Same applies to the segmentation menu. So let's say if you want to choose an income group, of let's say in-home only workers, so you can do so. Okay, so here you can again do SOV and see HOV, right? So I want to see this trend. Let's say I want to see this for workers, right? Just full-time workers, okay? And I want to see this for, let's say, only for weekdays. And I want to isolate the December records to see how that looks like. Okay, so this shows the number of trips per person made by SOV and HOV by workers. And this is again the duration, and this is the sample size that is available. Again, this is at the person level. So moving on to the trip level, right? Again, we have the identical structure. So we have the travel time distribution, the temporal distribution, and now instead of travel modes, right? So we have a trip purpose distribution by travel modes, okay? Now again, for the trip purpose distribution, right? So it is available here. So if you are interested in what is the percent of trips, okay, by trip purpose, okay, you can check this bivariate chart here for all category. Okay, so that is available here. Okay, let's say I want to compare HOV trips and SOV trips. Again, let's compare this for workers. Or yeah, let's compare this full-time workers, okay, over on weekdays. Okay, you can see the travel time distribution, right? So HOV seemingly a little bit shorter. The largest is 11 to 15, but if you compare it to averages, so HOV is overall on average is higher, maybe by 0.6 minutes. And then this is the temporal distribution of those trips. Okay, again, you can do the shading and you can see how that looks like. Okay. And then you also have the trip purpose distribution now by travel modes, right? So for HOV and SOV trips of the workers on weekdays, right? So the work purpose is 32% for SOV and 8.10% for HOV, right? And we have all the other percentages here. So if you are curious about the trip purpose distribution by mode, then basically this is your table. This is your graphic. So again, we have the segment size information here. So everything is quite similar to trip purpose. So you can download the data and you can do your own analysis as well. So moving on to zero trip making, this is the third topical area. So here we have two analysis types. Oh, before I forget. Okay, let's go back to trip purpose. Okay, let's change between year to cross-segment analysis. I think I forgot this to mention. Okay, so this is at the person level. So we have between year analysis type and cross-segment analysis type. So here, now you can choose only one metric, right? Whether it's, okay, you can choose only one metric. So first set which trip purpose do you want to analyze? Let's look into the work trips. And then let's look into the metric. So it is either number of trips on the survey day or the travel duration. So the total data travel duration for that purpose. Okay, let's choose number of trips. Now you can create your own segments and compare them for that metric. Okay, so for example, if you want to compare different age groups, right? So let's say I want to compare 15 to 30 years old group. Okay, so this is now 15 to 29 years old group. I want to compare them to all people, or older adults, right? So 65 years or older. Okay, so if you do the comparison, then you have it here, right? So the all is shown by default, right? Now this shows the comparison. Again, the sample sizes are available here, and you can download it. Okay? And if you basically want to remove any segment, so you can just click here and remove it. Okay? Or if you want to, let's say you want to compare how older adults, okay, the low income older adults and high income older adults, how do they compare, right? So you can come here, choose older adults, right? And let's choose higher income, edit, okay, and let's define the same older adults, this time with low income, okay? And let's see how those compare, right? So they, the segment one, okay, the high income group makes significantly higher trips than the low income older adults. Okay, again, the sample sizes are here, that you can also have a sense of the sample quality. And again, you can download the data, right? And you can see the data structure that now you have the old segment one and segment two. Okay, so here you can add up to 5 different segments, including the old. So we have this same feature available for travel mode. Right, so for travel mode, for example, if you want to do cross-segment analysis, right, so you can add, for example, males, and you can do females, right? There's another segment, and you can compare them, let's say this time travel duration, okay? And then you can compare how they utilize, let's say, SOE, okay? Or maybe walk. Okay? Again, the difference between year and cross-segment analysis, in between year, you can compare different metrics for a single market segment. In the cross-segment analysis, you can compare multiple segments over a single metric. Okay, so with that, let me go to zero trip making. So this is a rather simple topical area. We only have one chart. So that shows the percent of zero trip makers over the years. Okay, again, you can limit this analysis to any analysis period that you desire. And then you can also do configuration for analysis day and December option as well. So here, this shows what percent of the individuals, they don't take any trips during over a day. You can see that increases over the years, peaked during the pandemic, and then still significantly higher than pre-pandemic levels. You can again do segmentation to limit this to any years, so any market segments. Here you can do, for example, cross-segment analysis. For example, you can compare the zero trip making, right, between, let's say, low income, okay, and then let's say high income. Okay, so you can do these comparisons by using the cross-segment analysis, and you'll notice the zero trip making is significantly higher for low income individuals than high income individuals. Okay, so this is that. Maybe a few other notices here. So for example, let's say if you choose, right, so people whose main mode of transportation, auto, right? And then you can compare them to people whose main mode of transportation, not auto, and how that looks like. Okay. So these are quite minuscule. Okay, so let's go to, oh, by the way, it showed, I think I wanted to show this, right? So if your main mode of transportation, let's do this. So if your main mode of transportation is auto, basically, which means you undertook at least one trip, right? So which means you are not a zero trip maker. So this is fully basically 0% over the years. So that's line shows that. And if you want to compare again, like maybe one more thing here. if you want to compare, let's say, male and then white males, let's say, okay, and high income, or let's say white males that who lives in Pacific, okay, okay, and let's compare them. Okay, this is again we can do white males in let's say in middle Atlantic. Okay, so you can compare how their trip distribution, so percent of zero trip making rates changes over the years. Okay, so moving on to our final page. So this is the day pattern page. So this was quite interested in a way that, you know, we have the data that is available. So we have all the activities and activity purposes of individuals. So basically we know the preceding activity for each trip purpose and the following activity for associated with each trips. And we wanted to basically create a day pattern. So what I mean by day pattern is basically we start from home and all the way to the final trip that is made to the home. And we basically create a pattern that captures the trip purposes of each individual trips that is made between your first trip and your final trip. Okay. And if you didn't do any trips, your day pattern is basically you are a zero trip maker and your day pattern is basically zero, right? So this is the largest percent here. And because there are so many different day patterns, I think it's in thousands, then what is happening is we didn't want to show all of this like thousands of different day patterns, and we wanted to show what is the top 15 day patterns in terms of share in a selected sample, right? So again, you can do the, we have the within year, between year, and cross-segment analysis type for day pattern. We have the analysis year, so you can change this to any analysis year. Okay, and we have the analysis day. So this is our segment size. Okay, this is the share in the sample. So basically, let's say if I choose males, right? So the males represents 46% of the sample in 2023, right? And this is their segment size. Okay, so this is what it shows. And then we have the total number of trip chains. Okay, so a chain is basically any sequence of trips whose basically of which the first origin and the final destination is home, right? So basically a day pattern could involve maybe only a single trip chain or multiple trip chains. So you can have, for example, you can do home, work, home. Okay, this is one trip chain. And after having dinner, you can just go and meet friends. You can have another, basically a trip chain, let's say home, social, home. And in this way, you have two trip chains, right, over an entire day, but your day pattern is single, right? So you have home, work, home, and then social and home, right? So which includes two different chains in the day pattern. Okay, so these are the top 15 day patterns. Just because, you know, the names are quite long, we abbreviated them. Okay, but if you click here, right, this shows the abbreviation. So the homework home, right? So HWH means home to work and to home. And this represents for 7% of all the day patterns for that year. Okay, so this is home shopping, home. This is home to social recreation and home. So this is the entire day pattern, right? This is home to religious or volunteer civic activities to home. This is dining. Okay, this is to do errands. Okay, so this one is home, one shopping trip followed by another shopping trip and came back home. Okay, so this is another one. Anyway, so we have the top 15 day patterns here. And as you change analysis here, this changes. but you'll again notice the largest group is always the zero trip makers. Okay, so again, I think maybe let's look into workers, okay? Full-time workers on weekdays, right? So full-time workers on weekdays, the largest day pattern is basically home work home, right? So this is the 23% of the workers, right? They do homework home. And then you see there are multiple here. So this is homework home and another work trip and home. So maybe they made a stop during the lunch, or they came back and went back again to the work to do like extra hours. Okay, so we have home CWC home. Okay, so this is the consumer purchases. I think we need to correct this. So there is a typo here. So which means so this is the care. So HCWCH. Okay, so home to care trips. So this is like drop off kids to school. Okay, go to work, come back, pick up the kids, and then go back to home. So this is 1%. So home, care, work, care, home. Okay, so we'll do this. Basically we'll update that. So moving down, so this shows average number of trip chains per person. Again, for a day pattern, so people can have zero trip chain, right? So which means they undertake no trips. They can have one single trip chain, which means they have only one chain, okay, so like home, work, home, okay. And then they could have, let's say, multiple trip chains, just like here. So this one is a multiple trip chain, right? So home, work, home, social, recreation, and home. Okay, so this has two trip chains. Okay, so this shows basically average number of trip chains per person for that selected analysis configuration. And then we have the percent of day patterns by number of trip chains. Okay, so what percent of the day patterns have zero chain, one chain, two chains, and 3+ chains, right? So this 1299 is this, right? So this is the 1299. And so this shows the distribution, right? So 58% of the workers in this case, they have a single trip chain day pattern over a day. Okay, about 6% they have like 3+ chains over a day. Okay, and then the next, we also show average number of stops per trip chain. So everything here, right? So this chart, this information is on the day level, but this one is at the trip chain level. So for each trip chain, okay, what is the average number of stops? Okay, so for this one, the stop is basically, this is a one chain, right? So this is a one-stop chain. Okay. So this one, this is a two-stop chain. Okay, so here, HWH, okay, so home, work, home, social, recreation, home. So we have two chains, each with one stop. Okay, so this is basically showing number of stops per trip chain. And then we have percent of trip chains by number of stops. Okay, what percent of the trip chains has zero stop? Okay, zero stop means they left home, came back to home without stopping no more than 5 minutes. Okay, because anything less than 5 minutes is not captured at ATUS. Okay, maybe they just drop off something, or they just, traveled for the fun of traveling. Okay, so these are the zero stop chains. We have the one-stop chains, two-stop chains, and three-stop chains. Okay, so the one-stop chains is again the majority, about 56% of all the trip chains has only a single stop. Okay, so this again, all of this information is updates that gets updated automatically as you select those filters. Okay, so we'll reset. And then here we have between year analysis. So in the between year analysis, so we provide 30 different, so these are the top 30 day patterns, okay, over the entirety of the ATUS. So because again, we have thousands, I think in thousands, the different day patterns, so we cannot show all of them. We just pick and choose the most frequent ones. So these are the top 30. And you can see how those basically evolves over the years. For example, if you choose homework home, right? And if you choose another one, right? Let's do, okay, a double one, right? So homework home and then work and home, right? So this person came home during the in the middle of the day, likely. Okay. So let's compare this two. Okay. So what's the percentage over the years? And we can also compare this for full-time workers. Okay, again, let's do for weekdays. You can see how that evolves. Okay. You can also like choose some of the, okay, so you can also choose some of the care trips, okay, and see how that looks like over the years. Right. And this again, weekend. Similarly, if you do cross-segment analysis, okay, now you can only choose one of them. Let's choose home care home, okay, day patterns. And let's compare males, okay, so middle-aged males to middle-aged females. Okay, so you can compare these two groups and see how that looks like. So the segment 2 is females. So, right, so females have significantly larger share of this kind of a day pattern over the day, okay, and over the years. So again, the sample sizes are provided here. Okay, so that represents each of the segments. And you can again download the data. Okay, so this is pretty much what I have for the dashboard. So I just want to mention a couple of other things that if you delete this part, okay, if you delete this part and land on the homepage of our Tomnet UTC GitHub, okay, and if you come here, we have the dashboard links, all the dashboards and the softwares and other tools that we have available here. And if you go and click their GitHub repository, okay, then you have the data, okay, that should be available somewhere here. Okay, here, the data sets. So we have the data sets that is available here. So because of the limitation that GitHub doesn't allow you to have more than 100 megabytes of data, so the files, so we break down the data sets into two whenever it's basically exceeds 100 megabytes. So you can download all of these data sets. So these are the activity level data sets. So that represents trips. And this two is basically our trip level, so our person level data set. And then the day pattern data set is separately. So you can basically download those data sets and use, let me go to dashboard again, use our dictionary, data dictionary here, right? So you can download the data dictionary and then you can basically do your own analysis as well. So with that, I can stop. So thank you. And I can take questions.
Okay, thank you, Irfan. Let me make a few observations, and I have been recording some questions here that we'll get to in a few minutes here. If you've got any additional questions, feel free to post those in the chat, and we'll get to those in just a few minutes. I just want to make a couple of general observations and comments. The first one is the data hub concept is really intended to make multiple data sets available to folks. And the reason I think that's important is more often than not, as we begin to address transportation issues, credibility is an issue. People get anxious about surveys and sample sizes and response bias and et cetera. And I found it very, very helpful to when you address questions on trends and what's going on, to really rely on multiple data sets. And part of the value of having this hub is the idea that you can pull up multiple data sets and answer specific questions with those data sets. Often when I approach an issue and try and discern what's happening, I look for kind of a logical theory of what's going on. And that might be, for example, aging population and more communication substitution for travel, kind of common phenomenon that people talk about. And then you can look at survey data and see what does that say about it. Can you verify that with survey data? And for example, a lot of work gets done to compare the National Household Travel Survey with the American Time Use Survey, for example. And you can then see consistency in trends, which gives you greater confidence. And particularly when you're communicating with the public and media, when you can back a phenomenon up with multiple data sets, it gives you more credibility and more confidence. And then you can almost verify that to some extent with empirical count type data, ridership, vehicle miles of travel, et cetera, and really kind of wrap the story together by looking at those multiple data sets. And the value of this hub is to really support that concept of doing that. One of the things that we've been doing through the first TomNet and now TBD program is to put together briefs of travel trends that are on the website. Every year when the data sets are all available, we look at some of those key trends and report on those in briefs, and those are available. The American Time Use Survey is really a survey that's historically been kind of underappreciated and not as leveraged for transportation as perhaps it should be. It does go back to 2003, and of course, being a federal survey, it's got a fairly stronger response rate than you might get with a local survey, for example, a strong methodological background to the survey methods that support this. And so that makes it a very robust data set. And it by addressing activities, of course, that's really gotten more and more attention in transportation as we try and understand the relationship between activities and travel. And more recently, as we're exploring things like people that don't travel at all and the isolation and the implications to mental health, et cetera, associated with that. So that data set has become increasingly appreciated over time. It started in 2003, which is about the same point in time when the American Community Survey started. So we have some consistency across those two data sets, both being federal and some elements where we can do some evaluation and comparisons with those data sets. The other thing that's a little bit nice about American Time Use is it's perhaps the most disciplined of the federal surveys that come out annually, because it comes out the soonest. It'll be available the last week of June, and Irfan and his team will get it up on the website shortly thereafter, so you can look forward to having those trends extended into 2024 in the near term. And those of us that really enjoy looking at this data will be anxious to see how some of the trends in the phenomenon have moved over that period of time. The other national ones that we tend to look at, being a national center, in addition to the American Community Survey travel questions, we also look at the Consumer Expenditure Survey, little different kind of data, but also kind of complements our understanding of what's really going on in travel. The other thing that I would caution is oftentimes we're seeing a greater variation in travel behaviors across geographies than has historically been the case. Values, culture, availability of modes, climate, topography, all kinds of things can vary fairly dramatically across geography. This is a national data set. You can parse it down by regions, but it's often useful to compare this to what you might get in a local survey, and understand the differences and be able to communicate to folks how your area is similar or different than national conditions, and if so, why, in doing that. The other thing we're seeing happening a fair amount lately is folks that are interested in particular modes are looking at multiple data sets and trying to discern how come they're different, why they're different, do they define things differently, trips, modes, etc. And for example, Irfan spent some time going over trip rate information, and the walk people, the people that study walk, have looked at that and compared walk rates across various different surveys. The other data source that we're starting to see thrown in the mix now, of course, is cell data, cell phone data, which doesn't have the same kinds of sociodemographic information attached, and different interpretations of trip, and some discernment as to actual mode. But again, these data sets that we're sharing here are real strong reference points for looking at that. I did want to move on to some questions, and I'll post a couple first to get Irfan warmed up here, and then we do have some questions that have been put in the question queue, and I'll ask those as well. But Irfan, could you tell us a little bit how ATSU dealt with COVID, and are there any nuances or qualifications that folks need to pay attention to relating to the sampling during the COVID periods?
I think that during the COVID, they stopped data collection for a month. So as far as I remember, so they didn't collect any data in April. So April data is missing from 2020. And I think because of April data is missing, they also use a different weighting scheme, because the weighting also controls for the day, so that's distributed over the years. So that's why I think the weighting scheme, basically there's a consistent weight variable for all the years except 2020 in ATUS. So
okay. And that's consistent with the understanding I've had. And I might note that in a lot of ways, the ATSU is the best data set for that time period. It was less impacted than, for example, the American Community Survey by COVID. So in some senses, it's the best source to really understand what happened during that time period. Relating to that, Irfan, if somebody does want to look at intra-time period, intra-year data, what do they need to do that if they want to look at seasonality, for example?
over the months?
Yeah.
So basically what they can do, I believe we also provide, although it is not available in TMD, so they can download the data from TMD data. So going to GitHub. So if you download the data, there will be a month variable where you have the month information of the individuals and the respondents. So you can use that column to do any seasonality analysis that you want to do.
And you could use multiple years to kind of reinforce
You
the
have the year
quality of the
information, you
seasonality.
have the day information, and you have now you have also the month information. So you can combine any of this.
Okay. Kara gets credit for our first question posted on the chat, and she says, I believe the self-reported travel times by ATSU respondents, and I wonder if they are high. I think NHTS shows a lower minutes per day in travel.
So that's an interesting question. It is something we were also very curious to make comparisons between NHTS and ATUS. So over the years, I think there is a nice correspondence between ATUS and NHTS. I think until 2017. So for the latest NHTS, we've seen some differences, not only in terms of duration, but also in terms of trip making. So, but for ATUS, the data collection is very consistent. And I'm not sure if you can overstate the basically the travel time, because at the end, for your full-time diary has to add up to 24 hours, so 40 minutes. So I don't think there is a compelling reason to believe that's why they are, let's say, overstating one travel travel duration for a specific trip than a work, let's say, episode. So if they overstate, so they can overstate for all different activities. So that is a possibility, but I'm not sure if this is the case. But certainly there is the difference between NHTS and ATUS in the latest NHTS.
We have compared 2022 data on trip rates for ATSU versus NHTS, and it just as an example, ATSU showed 2.82 trips per person per day, and NHTS showed 2.28. There's certainly been some questions about the definition of trip and potential underreporting on NHTS, etc. ATUS is more likely to capture, in effect, non-household trips because it has you report your total activity-based travel, and if you're doing professional driving or other things, you'd probably capture more of that than you would in NHTS as well. We had a question from Hillary here, and it says, for auto versus non-auto, I believe you mentioned that it is defined by the number of trips. Can it also be done by trip length? For example, if I drove 1 mile to a train station, then take a 40-mile train trip, then drive 1 mile to a destination, would that be an auto trip or a non-auto trip?
Yeah, this is very interesting. In short, you cannot do it by length because the trip distance is not available at ATUS, but you can do it by duration, right? So you know the duration of the trip and you know the mode that is used in the trip. So using those two columns, basically you can create a new variable for another basically auto versus non-auto variable that you can use for this kind of analysis.
And we had a question from Thomas here that says, are work trips, are work from home trips classified as zero-time trips, or are they simply not classified as a trip?
So they are not trips. So if you basically not going to work, if you're not taking any trip to a workplace, you don't have any work trips. Okay, so you are basically staying at home. We can capture your work activities within the home at the ATUS, but of course we capture all the other non-work related trips of those in-home only workers.
Okay. If you would, Irfan, mention a little bit the issue of ATSU trips or ATSU categorization of time spent and not enabling, in effect, double counting or multitasking. For example, if some of our participants go home tonight and watch the Stanley Cup and play with the website on their desktop during commercials, how's that treated?
Yeah, so that's I think an interesting aspect of ATUS. So ATUS, if you are multitasking, okay, so basically you are being asked to report. So what is the dominant main activity of those activities? So you only report the dominant activity or the main activity, and you don't report the secondary activities. So basically you get to choose which one is the more dominating one. But this is not the case for the travel activities. For all the travel activities, everything else that you multitask is secondary. Okay, so ATUS doesn't treat travel as a secondary activity. It's always the main activity with whichever activities it's combined with.
Yeah, thank you. We had a couple folks that were asking what H to H and H to H to H trips meant. Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, so these
just to interject,
Time,
just just to interject, we're actually at time. We're at 90 minutes. So
yeah.
so that's why I took it upon myself to answer a lot of questions in the chat. So I think I caught up with most of the questions in the
Where we're at.
chat.
Okay.
I think we're kind of at time, and we should probably let folks go on with their day. But maybe if there's any final burning questions, people can raise their hands and raise the virtual hand in Zoom, and we can entertain some final questions before we call this to a close.
Let me ask one for a close here. Irfan, how are long distance trips treated that might be different from other surveys?
I don't think it's treated differently because it's just a trip. So it doesn't take, it's just another activity. So you can get, I think, long trip durations. But it's only the duration that we have the information. We don't have the trip length. So the duration and the mode, so we can infer, I think, if something is might be a long distance trip over that.
If you traveled all day and stopped for lunch and gas once, would that show up as defining each segment new?
I haven't explored these edge cases. Yeah, if you traveled all the day, I think, but it is available in the data sets that we have, so we can get to see what is the maximum travel time for travel duration spent for any day for any individual. So I'm curious.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So
I
I
don't
think,
see
yeah, I think so. I think, and hopefully I was able to catch up with most of the questions in the chat. But if you do have any more questions about the dashboard, about the data and so on, please feel free to reach out to any of us, and especially Irfan. Irfan knows all the ins and outs of the ATUS data and everything that has been done in terms of putting the dashboard together. So with that, we will have the recording of this event up on the TBD Center website. Just go to the TBD Center website under events, look up webinars, and the recording will be there very shortly. We also have a YouTube channel for the TBD Center, and this recording will be available on the YouTube channel as well. So with that, thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure. Hopefully you enjoy playing with the dashboard, and of course, feedback is always welcome. So with that, thank you all and have a good day.
Thank you.